Laura Bennett stared at her computer screen, her coffee growing cold beside her keyboard. The radio signals kept coming in perfect mathematical sequences, too perfect to be natural. She had been working at the Arecibo Observatory for 8 years, but this was different from anything she had ever seen. Her hands trembled as she reached for her phone to call the observatory director. It was 3 a.m., but this couldn't wait until morning. "Dr. Phillips, you need to see this," she said when he answered. "The signal, it's repeating in prime numbers." 20 minutes later, the observation room was filled with bleary-eyed scientists huddled around monitors. The message was coming in stronger now, and computers were beginning to decode its contents. "It's in multiple languages," Dr. Phillips said, his voice barely a whisper. "Look, Mandarin, Arabic, English, Spanish, dozens of them." Laura leaned forward, reading the English translation as it appeared on her screen. "To the species of Earth, greetings from the Galactic Council. Your civilization has reached the threshold of interstellar capability. As per Protocol 7249, all emerging spacefaring species must undergo evaluation before further advancement. Your test will commence in 3 Earth months. Prepare your finest representatives. Success rate among previous species, 0%. The room fell silent. Laura looked around at her colleagues, seeing her own mix of excitement and fear reflected in their faces. Humanity's first contact with alien life, and it came with a test they were apparently destined to fail. The news spread quickly. Within hours, every major news network was broadcasting the message. People flooded the streets, some celebrating, others protesting, many simply trying to make sense of this new reality. In Washington, D.C., an emergency meeting of world leaders was hastily convened. The United Nations Security Council gathered for an unprecedented 72-hour session. Every country wanted a say in how Earth would respond to this challenge. Laura found herself pulled from her regular duties and thrust into a newly formed response team. The government had converted an old military base in Colorado into their preparation headquarters. Scientists, military personnel, and diplomats from around the world poured in, all trying to understand what this test might involve. The message mentioned other species failing, she said during one of their planning sessions. "But failing at what? And why tell us the failure rate?" added Colonel Richard Martinez, who led their security team. "It's like they're trying to intimidate us." Dr. Amy Chen, a xenobiologist, shook her head. "Or maybe they're trying to motivate us. Humans often perform better when they're told something's impossible." As the days passed, more signals arrived. The Galactic Council shared basic information about themselves. They were a coalition of 218 spacefaring species, governing most of the known galaxy. Their evaluation system had been in place for over 50,000 years. Laura spent countless nights analyzing the signals, trying to find hidden clues about the test. The Council's messages were direct, but revealed little about what they actually wanted. Each new piece of information raised more questions than answers. 47 species had taken the test before humanity. Each one had failed in different ways. Some couldn't handle the psychological pressure. Others failed to solve the practical challenges. A few simply refused to complete the evaluation. 2 months into their preparation time, Laura made an interesting discovery. Hidden in the background noise of the Council's transmissions was a pattern she hadn't noticed before. She brought it to Dr. Phillips immediately. "Look at this," she said, pointing to her data. "Every message has this same signature. It's like they're scanning us while they communicate." "They're studying our responses," Dr. Phillips realized. The test might have already started. This revelation changed their approach. Instead of just preparing for a future test, they had to consider that everything they did might be part of the evaluation. How they handled the pressure, how they worked together, how they dealt with uncertainty. It could all matter. As the 3-month mark approached, a new message arrived. Preparation time concludes in 7 days. Your response to this situation has been noted. Evaluation ship approaching Earth orbit. Prepare for contact. Laura looked out her window at the stars, wondering what waited up there. Humanity had never faced a challenge like this before, but then again, maybe that's exactly why they might succeed where others had failed. The alien ship appeared on a Tuesday morning. It emerged from what looked like a tear in space, its surface gleaming like liquid metal under the sun. The vessel was massive, nearly the size of Manhattan, and it moved with impossible grace for something so large. Commander Daniel Hayes stood at the window of the International Space Command Center, watching the ship settle into orbit. His reflection showed dark circles under his eyes from weeks of preparation. Behind him, dozens of screens displayed data from every tracking station on Earth. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies," said Linda Morris, his communications officer. "They want us to prepare a landing zone for their shuttle." The chosen location was a specially constructed platform in the middle of the Mojave Desert. Within hours, military vehicles and scientific equipment surrounded the area. News helicopters circled at a safe distance, broadcasting to billions of viewers worldwide. The alien shuttle descended like a falling star. It was smaller than expected, about the size of a passenger jet, with smooth curves that seemed to bend light around it. As it landed, the air shimmered with heat distortion. Daniel led the welcome party. With him were Dr. Laura Bennett from Arecibo, representatives from major world governments, and a team of linguists and scientists. They had rehearsed this moment countless times, but nothing could truly prepare them for what emerged from the shuttle. The aliens walked on 4 legs, their bodies covered in what looked like shifting colors. The leader, High Evaluator Zixtal, stood taller than the others. Behind them came representatives from other species, some floating, others walking on various numbers of limbs, one even rolling like a ball. "Greetings, humans," Zixtal spoke in perfect English, their voice resonating in an odd way. "We have watched your preparations with great interest." The formal introductions took place under the desert sun. Each alien species had their own way of showing respect. Some bowed, others performed complex gestures. One released a pleasant scent into the air. "Your species has shown remarkable unity in face of our arrival," Zixtal continued. "Previous civilizations often descended into chaos at this stage." Daniel noticed how the aliens' colors shifted as they spoke, wondering if it was their way of showing emotion. "We have our disagreements," he said, "but we understand the importance of working together." They moved to a nearby facility for the formal briefing. The room had been designed to accommodate various alien body types, with spaces for those who needed water, different atmospheric conditions, or unusual gravity requirements. "The test will begin tomorrow," Zixtal announced. "We must explain the rules and conditions." The aliens shared videos of previous tests. Daniel watched as strange creatures faced challenges in massive simulation chambers. Some tests showed entire civilizations dealing with crisis scenarios. Others focused on individuals solving complex problems. "Each species fails in their own unique way," one of the other alien representatives explained. Their body was made of something like crystal, catching the light as they moved. The Zorblaks couldn't handle emotional stress. The Quantum Collective refused to work with organic beings. The hive mind of Sector 7 tried to assimilate the test itself. Laura raised her hand. "What exactly are you testing?" Zixtal's colors swirled in complex patterns. "Everything. And nothing specific. The test adapts to each species. It finds their breaking point." "And if we fail?" Daniel asked. "You join the others, restricted to your solar system until you evolve further. But if you succeed—" Zixtal paused, their colors brightening. "You gain access to the galaxy and all its wonders." As the briefing continued, Daniel studied each alien representative carefully. They all seemed to be watching the humans just as closely. He realized that everything, every reaction, every question, every decision, was being evaluated. The meeting ended with the selection process for Earth's test team. 5 humans would represent their entire species. The weight of that responsibility filled the room like a physical presence. As they left the facility, the desert sky had turned dark, filled with stars. Somewhere up there, The massive alien ship waited. Tomorrow, humanity would face its greatest challenge. Daniel looked at his team and saw determination in their eyes. Maybe, just maybe, they would be the ones to finally pass the test. Catherine Miller adjusted her uniform one last time before entering the simulation chamber. The room was enormous, stretching up at least 50 stories high. The walls seemed to shift and change, like living metal. Behind her, the other 4 team members looked equally nervous and excited. Peter Rodriguez, the environmental scientist, checked his tablet one more time. They say this chamber can create any scenario, any environment. It's beyond anything we've ever built. Ashley Thompson nodded, her anthropologist's mind already analyzing everything around them. Look at the symbols on the walls. They're from different species, different tests. Nathan Clark, the physicist, reached out to touch one of the walls. His hand passed right through it. Holograms, but they feel solid. The technology is incredible. Susan Wright, their medical expert, kept her medical scanner running. The air composition keeps changing slightly. They're adjusting it to perfect human conditions. High Evaluator Zixtal appeared before them, their color patterns moving in complex waves. Your species has chosen an interesting team. Others sent their strongest warriors or most brilliant mathematicians. You chose variety. The chamber hummed to life. The space around them began to change, forming into what looked like a control room. Screens appeared, showing different alien species, various planets, and streams of data. Before you begin, Zixtal said, observe how others failed. The screens showed scenes from previous tests. A species of crystalline beings refused to help organic life forms, watching them die instead. Floating gas creatures tried to save everyone and ended up saving no one. Hive-minded insects attempted to solve everything with pure logic and failed to understand emotional needs. Each species faced the same core challenge, Zixtal explained, but each saw it differently. The quantum collective saw only equations. The empath swarm felt too much pain to act. The Silicon Unity couldn't understand organic fear. Catherine stepped forward. What exactly are we facing? The chamber shifted again. Now they stood in what looked like a space station command center. Stars shone through massive windows, and dozens of holographic displays filled the air around them. You have 72 hours, Zixtal said. This star system has 9 inhabited planets. The star will go supernova. You have limited resources, limited ships, and billions of lives at stake. Save as many as you can. The team looked at each other. They had trained for various scenarios, but this was beyond anything they had imagined. Previous species chose different approaches, Zixtal continued. Some tried to save their own kind first. Others attempted to move the planets. A few tried to stop the supernova. All failed. Peter started studying the environmental data. These species breathe different atmospheres. They need different gravity levels, different temperatures. Some of them are at war with each other. Ashley noted, reading cultural information. They won't want to be evacuated together. Nathan was already calculating distances and times. Even if we had enough ships, we can't reach all the planets in time. And some species can't survive in space for long periods. Susan added, reviewing biological data. Catherine took a deep breath. This was why they had chosen this team. They each saw different parts of the problem. We need to think differently, she said. We're not going to solve this like other species did. The screens around them filled with more data. Ship locations, resource counts, population numbers, and cultural information scrolled past. The star pulsed ominously in the background. Your time starts now, Zixtal said, their colors turning a deep blue. Remember, 47 species have faced this test. All failed. All had different reasons why they couldn't succeed. The alien leader began to fade away. One final thing. Everything you see is a simulation, but your choices, your decisions, your reactions, those are very real, and we will be watching all of them. As Zixtal disappeared, The team gathered around the central display. They had 72 hours to solve an impossible problem. But they had something no other species had. They had humanity's unique way of thinking. Catherine looked at her team. Let's show them how humans handle impossible situations. 6 hours into the test, Catherine stood before the massive display screen, watching as Peter pointed out the various planets in the dying star system. The situation was worse than they first thought. These 3 planets are already too hot, Peter said, pointing to the inner worlds. The star's expansion is affecting them first. We have less time than we expected. Susan looked up from her medical data. The species on those planets can handle higher temperatures, but not for much longer. We have maybe 12 hours before they start dying. Ashley pulled up cultural information on the nearest screen. That's not our only problem. The blue planet and the red planet are at war. They've been fighting for 20 years. They'll shoot at each other's rescue ships. Nathan worked on calculations at another station. We don't have enough ships to save everyone anyway. Even if we could get them all to work together, we can only evacuate about 40% of the total population. Catherine watched the star pulse on the main screen. Its color was shifting toward red, a warning of the coming explosion. The team had spent hours gathering information, and every new fact made their task seem more impossible. Show me the ship types again, she said. The display changed, showing the various spacecraft available to them. Cargo ships, passenger vessels, military crafts, and mining ships filled the screen. Each planet had their own fleet, but they all refused to help other worlds. Look at these mining ships, Peter said suddenly. They're designed to dig into asteroids. Their hulls can handle extreme conditions. Nathan moved to Peter's screen. They're slow, but they have massive cargo holds, and they're built to last in space for months at a time. Catherine felt a spark of an idea. What if we don't try to evacuate everyone? What if we help them survive instead? The team gathered around her as she explained her thinking. They couldn't save everyone, but maybe they could help some survive long enough to be rescued later. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was different from what other species had tried. The mining ships, she continued. Could we use them as shelters? Bury them in the moons or asteroids? Nathan started running calculations. The hulls could handle it. They're designed for deep space and heavy pressure. We'd need to modify their life support systems. But how do we choose who survives? Susan asked. We're still talking about leaving billions behind. Ashley pulled up population data. What if we let them choose? Every culture has some form of lottery system. It's seen as more fair than authority figures picking who lives and who dies. The star pulsed again, and one of the inner planets began showing signs of severe heat damage. Alarms sounded throughout the simulation chamber. We need to work faster, Catherine said. Peter, start identifying possible shelter locations. Nathan, figure out how to modify those mining ships. Susan, work out what each species needs to survive long-term. Ashley, draft a lottery system that will be accepted across cultures. As her team split up to work on their tasks, Catherine noticed something odd in the ship data. Wait, look at these military vessels. Their weapon systems use massive amounts of power. Nathan looked up from his calculations. Yes, most of their energy goes to weapon charging. Why? What if we stripped out the weapons? How many more people could we save with that extra power redirected to life support? The team gathered around the weapons data. It was a risk. Removing weapons would leave the ships defenseless. But if they could convince the warring planets to disarm their rescue ships, they could save thousands more people. Catherine looked at her team's determined faces. They had 64 hours left, and a plan was forming. It wasn't the kind of plan that would save everyone. It wasn't the kind of solution that would look perfect on paper, but it was a human solution. Messy, creative, and just might work. Let's get started, she said. We'll need to present this to the planetary leaders within the next 2 hours. And someone needs to figure out how to convince 2 warring planets to trust each other. The star flared again, its light casting long shadows through the simulation chamber. The clock was ticking, But for the first time since the test began, they had hope. The next 12 hours passed in a blur of activity. Catherine watched as their plan slowly came together, piece by piece. On the main screen, she could see mining ships being modified across the system. The star's angry red glow lit up everything with an eerie light. "The blue planet has agreed to the lottery," Ashley reported, relief clear in her voice. "They're starting to select people now. The red planet is still thinking about it." Peter pointed to a cluster of large asteroids on his screen. "We found 15 good locations for the mining ship shelters. They're far enough from the star to survive the explosion, but close enough to reach in time." Susan worked with holographic displays of different alien physiologies. "I've figured out how to adjust the life support systems. We can mix and match species that can survive in similar conditions. It will let us save more people." Nathan looked up from his work on the mining ships. "The weapon removal process is working. Each military ship we convert can carry an extra 300 passengers. But the red planet is still refusing to disarm their vessels." Catherine nodded, taking in all the information. They had made progress, but they were still far from success. The star was getting worse, and they had only saved a small fraction of the population so far. "Show me the red planet's leader again," she said. A hologram appeared, showing a tall, crystalline being. Their species communicated through light patterns that flashed across their surface. Previous attempts to convince them had failed. "What if we show them something different?" Catherine asked. "Not charts or numbers, but what we're actually doing." She asked Ashley to connect them to one of the modified mining ships. The video feed showed hundreds of different species working together, helping each other into survival pods. There were beams of light working alongside creatures of crystal, gas-form entities helping solid beings, traditional enemies setting aside their differences to survive. The red planet's leader watched in silence. Their surface flickered with complex patterns that Ashley struggled to translate. Finally, they sent their response. "They agree," Ashley said, her eyes wide with surprise. "They say any species that can make their enemies work together deserves a chance. They'll disarm their ships." Progress moved faster after that. As each hour passed, more ships were converted, more people were chosen by lottery, and more shelters were prepared. The team worked without rest, solving problems as they appeared. "We've got a problem on Shelter 7, Peter called out. "The artificial gravity is failing." Nathan rushed to help him. "The power systems are overloading. There are too many different gravity needs." Catherine watched them work, seeing how they bounced ideas off each other. No one tried to take all the credit or prove they were smartest. They just focused on solving each problem as it came. "What if we rotate the gravity?" Susan suggested. "Different levels at different times. Like a schedule." The idea worked. Soon, all the shelters were using gravity rotation systems. It wasn't perfect, but it let different species share the same space. It was another human solution. Not elegant, but effective. As they passed the halfway point in their time limit, Catherine took a moment to look at their progress. The screen showed thousands of ships moving through space, carrying survivors to shelters. The lottery systems were running smoothly. Former enemies worked side by side. "How many have we saved?" she asked. Nathan checked the numbers. "About 30% of the total population so far. We might reach 45% if everything keeps working." It wasn't everyone. Billions would still be lost, but they had already saved more than any previous species had managed. And they had done it not by being stronger or smarter, but by being more adaptable, more creative, more willing to try unusual solutions. The star flared again, larger this time. They still had 36 hours left, but Catherine knew the real challenges were just beginning. Saving people was one thing. Keeping them alive and working together was another. But as she watched her team tackle each new problem, she felt something she hadn't expected to feel during this test. Pride. 24 hours before the star would explode, a new threat appeared on their screens. A fleet of dark ships emerged from behind one of the system's gas giants. They weren't part of any known planet's forces. Pirates, Ashley said, reading the cultural data. They prey on systems in crisis. They've been hiding, waiting for this moment. Catherine watched as the pirate ships moved toward the evacuation routes. These raiders had weapons, while all the rescue ships had been disarmed to save more people. They're targeting the shelters, Nathan reported. Their ships are heavily armed. They want to take over our safe zones. Susan checked the life signs on the pirate vessels. They're a mix of species, outcasts and criminals from across the system. They know we can't save everyone, so they're trying to steal the shelters for themselves. The team gathered around the main display. The pirates had positioned themselves between the remaining evacuation ships and the shelters. Any rescue ship that tried to pass would be destroyed. We can't fight them, Peter said. We used all the weapons for power conversion. Even if we hadn't, we don't have time for a battle. Catherine stared at the tactical display. They had come so far, saved so many. They couldn't fail now. Then she noticed something about the pirate ships. Look at their design, she said. Those are old military vessels. They're running on standard power systems. They haven't been modified like ours. Nathan understood immediately. Their life support systems are original. They can only support their own species in each ship. Ashley. Catherine turned to the anthropologist. What do pirates want? To survive, Ashley answered. They're attacking because they think it's their only option. Catherine smiled for the first time in hours. Then let's give them another option. Instead of trying to fight the pirates, Catherine sent them their shelter plans. She showed them how they had modified the ships, how they had made different species work together. She offered them a choice: keep fighting alone, or join the evacuation and help save others. This is risky, Nathan warned. We're giving them our weaknesses, showing them exactly how our shelters work. We're showing them how to survive, Catherine corrected him. Pirates or not, they're still people trying to live. The team watched as the pirate fleet received their message. Minutes passed in tense silence. The star pulsed behind them, growing more unstable with each flare. Finally, the pirate leader responded. Their ship turned its weapons away from the evacuation route. More pirate ships followed their leader's example. They're powering down weapons, Peter reported. They're offering to help with the evacuation. The pirates' knowledge of the system proved valuable. They knew hidden routes, shortcuts through dangerous regions. Their ships began protecting evacuation vessels, guiding them safely to the shelters. 48% saved, Susan announced. We're past what we thought possible. But their success brought a new problem. More people wanted to board the shelters than they could handle. Some rescue ships were reporting fights breaking out. Fear is spreading, Ashley said. They know we're running out of time. Catherine looked at the chaos spreading through the rescue operation. They had solved the physical problems, but now they faced something harder: managing hope and fear across multiple species. Put me through to all ships, she ordered. When the communication system was ready, Catherine spoke to everyone in the system: citizens, pirates, soldiers, and refugees alike. She told them the truth. Not everyone would survive. But their only chance was to work together in these final hours. We're not just saving bodies, she said. We're saving who we are. Every person who helps another proves we deserve to survive. As her words translated across different species, something changed in the evacuation. The fight stopped. People began helping strangers board ships. Former pirates worked alongside their old victims. They had 23 hours left. The star was reaching critical mass, but humanity had shown something remarkable. In the face of disaster, they could make enemies into allies. They could turn fear into cooperation. The real test, Catherine realized, wasn't about saving everyone. It was about how they handled an impossible choice. The star's final hour approached with a terrible beauty. Its surface boiled with massive solar flares, casting red light across the entire system. In the simulation chamber, Catherine and her team watched their displays as the last evacuation ships raced toward the shelters. "Final numbers coming in," Nathan said, his voice tired but proud. 83% survival rate across all species. It's more than we thought possible. Susan looked up from her medical station. All shelters report stable life support. The gravity rotation schedules are working. Different species are adapting to shared spaces. The cultural integration is surprising everyone. Ashley added, "Former enemies are helping each other. The pirates are teaching survival skills to civilians. They're all learning from each other." Peter checked the shelter positions one last time. All shelters are safely buried in their asteroids. Their shielding should protect them from the supernova. The star pulsed one final time. The team watched as the massive ball of fire began to collapse in on itself. They had done everything they could. Now they would see if it was enough. The simulation chamber filled with blinding light as the star exploded. When the light faded, High Evaluator Zixtal stood before them, their color patterns swirling with intense activity. "The test is complete," Zixtal announced. "In all our years of evaluation, no species has ever achieved such results." The chamber's walls became transparent, revealing dozens of alien observers who had been watching their performance. Many showed signs of what seemed to be surprise or approval. "But we didn't save everyone," Catherine said. "Billions were still lost." Zixtal's colors shifted to a gentle blue. "The test was never about saving everyone. It was impossible by design. We wanted to see how you would handle an impossible situation." The chamber filled with images from their test. They saw their team working together, converting mining ships into shelters, creating the lottery system, sharing plans with pirates, managing different species in close quarters. Other species tried to solve this problem in their own ways, Zixtal explained. The logical ones tried to calculate perfect solutions. The emotional ones tried to save everyone. The militant ones tried to fight. The hive minds tried to control everything. Another alien stepped forward, its crystalline body glowing softly. "But humans, you did something unique. You accepted that you couldn't save everyone, yet you never stopped trying to save more. You turned enemies into allies. You found ways to make different species work together. Most importantly, a floating gas form being added, you showed flexibility in your thinking. When one solution failed, you tried another. When faced with pirates, you offered cooperation instead of combat. You managed both the physical and emotional challenges." Zixtal moved to the center of the chamber. "Your species has passed the test. But more than that, you have shown us something new. Your ability to balance logic and emotion, to find creative solutions, to bring different groups together. These are rare and valuable traits in our galaxy." The chamber transformed one final time, showing them a view of the real galaxy. Countless stars and worlds spread out before them, now open to humanity's exploration. "Welcome to the Galactic Council," Zixtal said. "We believe your species has much to teach us." As the simulation ended, Catherine looked at her team. They were exhausted but happy. They had faced an impossible test and found a way through it, not by being perfect, but by being uniquely human. "What happens now?" Peter asked. "Now," Zixtal replied, "we begin the real work. Your world will receive new technology, new knowledge. But we also ask for your help. There are many challenges in our galaxy that could benefit from humanity's unique approach to problem solving." The team walked out of the simulation chamber together, stepping into a new era for humanity. They hadn't just passed a test. They had shown that being human, with all their flaws and creativity, their emotions and logic, their ability to adapt and cooperate, was exactly what the galaxy needed. Behind them, the chamber's walls still showed that view of the galaxy filled with endless possibilities. Humanity's next great adventure was about to begin.